Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What if you decided to con one of the most diabolical killers of all time? Let's just say you wouldn't be around much longer. Hello, citizens of the internet, I'm the hero you never knew you needed, and today we are going to dive into all the things you need to know before watching the upcoming horror movie, Saw X. So grab your head traps and get those torture chambers ready because it starts now. In the dark and twisted tale of 2004, the first Saw film burst onto the big screen like a fiendish firework, leaving audiences both horrified and cringeworthy at its gruesome affairs and a finale so twisted, even pretzels were jealous. With a box office bounty of $103 million against its puny $1.2 million budget, it proved that sometimes you just need a killer idea, quite literally. This blood-soaked baby step launched an entire subgenre of horror, where even the bravest viewers had to watch through their fingers. And from this infernal inception, a franchise emerged, a graveyard shift for countless on-screen souls who should have paid more attention in self-defense class. Basically, the Saw franchise is like a horror movie villain, indestructible and unkillable. And as any good movie ending has taught us, as soon as you think the villain is dead, it comes back for more. John Kramer and his diabolical devices are no exception. They've got more comebacks than a 90s boy band. It's been nearly 2 decades since that first spine-tingling flick, and here we are gearing up for the 10th installment, appropriately titled Saw X. Who knew sadistic puzzles were so evergreen? It's like they say, some things just get better with age, like fine wine, vintage cars, and apparently sadistic serial killers. So when will Saw X hit theaters? Well, horror buffs, rejoice. It's not just pumpkin spice lattes that make fall exciting. Spine-tingling cinema is in full swing this year. But there's always an extra sprinkle of magic when a spooky flick hits the screen right around Halloween. And for those who like their scares served with a side of gore, Saw X is set to unleash a crimson carnival on September 29th this year. Now, Saw X finds itself in quite the horror sandwich. It's like being stuck between a possessed rock and a hard place, with The Nun 2 trailing closely behind and the sinister duo of The Exorcist Believer and Five Nights at Freddy's hot on its heels. It's like a spooky showdown of epic proportions. Halloween season 2023 is gearing up to be a cinematic trick-or-treat for horror fans. Popcorn with a side of fingers, anyone? So what is the plot of Saw X, you might be asking? What nightmarish scenarios can we expect? Well, we know the film is actually going to be something of a prequel, taking place after the original Saw movie, but before the events of Saw 2. Now picture this. John Kramer in his final days, armed with cancer and a bucket list. It's like Breaking Bad, but with a lot more blood and a lot fewer chemistry lessons. John's desperation will take him to Mexico, where he's hoping to sign up for an experimental medical procedure. Unfortunately, John finds out that there's no actual cure. The people making lofty promises are all con artists, and there's no hope for John's health below the border. Now, you didn't think the Jigsaw Killer would go through all that trouble for nothing, did you? Of course not. He isn't going to waste the opportunity to murder some people, especially the ones who conned the wrong guy. John decides it's time to play a game.
Hello, everyone. It's time to play a game.
Soon enough, the folks who lured John to Mexico with promises of salvation will find themselves trapped in a hell of Jigsaw's making. All sorts of disgusting, disturbing traps await, and we can't wait to see what John has in store. I'm sure it will be a bloody good time. So you may be wondering if you need to watch the 9 other Saw movies, and the horror fan inside me is screaming, you haven't yet? But I won't judge you. That seems to be the Jigsaw Killer's job. My recommendation, if you don't have the time to watch all the gory goodness in all the films, is to watch Saw and Saw 2 so you are prepared for the story of Saw X in between. Adding Saw 3 will give you all the story all the way up to when John Kramer finally kicks the bucket as well. But why are we traveling back in time in this movie? The horror genre is well known for taking the occasional odd left turn after a series has been kicking around for a long time. After we sent Jason to space, I think everything and anything was on the table. Fans of this particular franchise should already be used to chronological shenanigans. For one thing, Saw 3 and Saw 4 happened simultaneously. Piecing together the entire Saw franchise timeline involves more than just watching the movies in order. Many characters, including the all-important John Kramer, have their backstories explained in flashbacks flashback sequences only after they've hung around for several movies. There's only one reason that Saul X is going back in the timeline, and fans will probably agree it's a good one. John Kramer, the original Jigsaw killer, died all the way back in Saw 3. Since then, the franchise has included him in flashbacks and prequel stories while mostly following copycat killers. Saw X is bringing the franchise back to where it started by setting its story in the past and letting John Kramer return to the spotlight for real. So who is starring in Saw X? Alright, Jigsaw devotees, gather around because the man, the myth, the twisted legend, Tobin Bell, is strapping back into the sadistic saddle. It's like the ultimate horror homecoming. Saw X is focusing on Jigsaw more than any other Saw movie. And Shawnee Smith is returning as John Kramer's apprentice, Amanda Young. Unfortunately for fans, however, serial killer Dr. Lawrence Gordon will not be returning for this prequel movie. But what does Saw X mean for the future of Saw movies? 2024 marks the 20th anniversary of the first Saw movie. Directed by James Wan, Saw caught the attention of so many horror fans because of its approach to on-screen violence and its remarkable twisted ending. The franchise has never exactly been a critical darling, but it kept filling theaters, so the series continued. It only makes sense. But Saw has seen better days. We've come a long way since the yearly releases of the late 2000s. Nowadays, Saw movies are few and far between, and they aren't guaranteed to be successes. Spyro had been an abysmal box office performance that some were wondering if it meant the franchise was officially dead. Saw X is set out to prove that there's still room for the series to keep growing. Clearly, the people responsible for making Saw movies still believe in them. Tobin Bell is still excited by the characters, and producers and directors are willing to put time and money into making a new movie. On the other hand, Saw X could end up being a swan song for the series. One way or another, the future of the entire franchise rests on how well Saw X is received when it finally debuts. So why is the movie called Saw X, you may be wondering? Saw X might seem like a straightforward title, but there's more here than meets the eye. Quite literally. It seemingly confirms that Spyro was the 9th Saw movie, regardless of what its director had to say. But this latest installment isn't taking a cue from Fast X with this title either. Sorry Dom, but family isn't a part of this movie. Instead, Saw X is borrowing a title formula from the franchise's early days to make it loud and clear that John Kramer has returned and Saw is back in fighting form. When Saw was just getting started, every movie in the series got a Roman numeral after the title. Then of course we had the ill-fated attempt to give Saw a third dimension with Saw 3D. It's like trying to add depth to a pop-up book. It sounded good in theory. Since then, we've had Jigsaw and Spyro trying to carry the torch, but now Saw X is boldly reclaiming the throne, returning to the roots that made this franchise the twisted legend it is today by placing its story right back in the good old days of the franchise. Longtime Saw fans are thrilled that Tobin Bell is coming back to the franchise as John Kramer, but let's not kid ourselves. In Saw X, John might be the headliner, but he's more of a supporting act in the grand scheme of things. The traps are the real main attraction of the movie, and they're what have kept people coming back to various Saw sequels for so long. As with every new Saw movie, you can expect Saw X to be filled with brand new, hyper-violent contraptions. The poster for the movie, for Pete's sake, already gives a hint of what to expect. It shows someone locked into a set of creepy goggles that have tubes connected to the eyes. Whatever the device is meant to do, watching it in action will probably make you cringe. The official Saw X trailer also gives a few brief glances at John's inventions in the movie. It shows a group of people chained up inside a classic Saw warehouse. Nostalgia feels indeed. One woman appears to have a saw blade set up in front of her neck. A panicked man is strapped into some kind of modified electric chair. And in a different shot, we see a Jigsaw puppet wheeling out surgical supplies to John's victims. From the little we've seen, Saw X looks like to be as gruesome as all of its past films. Saw X is poised to unleash a carnival of terror like never before, with Tobin Bell reprising his iconic role and a gallery of mind-bending traps stealing the spotlight. This installment promises to be a blood-soaked masterpiece. As we step back into the grim world of John Kramer, it's not just a trip down memory lane, it's a one-way ticket to Nightmare Central. So mark your calendars for September 29th and brace yourselves for a roller coaster ride of suspense, gore, and heart-pounding thrills. I'm just gonna say you might be watching through your fingers one more time. This is one twisted tale you won't want to miss. Until next time, I'll see you at the movies.